Crown Jewel 2024 has just ended from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The whole gimmick of this event is that every year now, instead of doing the champion versus champion matches at Survivor Series, which is what they had done up until 2022 after Vince stepped down, instead they're moving those to this show with this new championship, the Crown Jewel Championship, which is going to end up being like an annual, more like a trophy type of thing where you'll have the champions from both brands wrestling each other from the men and women's side, and then the winner gets like a ring, kind of like a Super Bowl ring, but the championships themselves will stay in Saudi Arabia at the WWE Experience event. So it's kind of a creative idea where Triple H is taking an idea that Vince McMahon was using at Survivor Series with the cross-brand thing and just kind of plucking it out and using it to make the Crown Jewel show more important and to also sort of raise the stakes of this as like a new title, because now you're going to have guys in the following years win the Crown Jewel, ring, and women too, and sort of have that as like a new accomplishment. So Cody Rhodes and Rhea Ripley are the first Crown Jewel winners. Cody Rhodes defeated Gunther in a great main event. It was a very pure sports type of main event. No shenanigans, no interference. I thought Kevin Owens was going to screw Cody over. It was just a competitive match where they were both trying to out wrestle each other, and it told a great story. Just a great, solid wrestling match. Shocker, Gunther had a good match. Shocker, Cody had a good match. That's all this was. Some are going to say it's maybe anticlimactic because a lot of wrestling fans are accustomed to having the show end with like a big surprise or a big return, like The Rock last pay-per-view at Bad Blood. This was just two guys going at it. And then afterward, Triple H came in the ring with some of the Saudi representatives, and they basically brought Rhea back out, and they all like sort of raised their hands and celebrated them as being the first ever men's and women's Crown Jewel champions. So earlier in the night, Rhea Ripley, no, I said Rhea, I'm sorry, I'm still thinking about Rhea Ripley. Liv Morgan. Rhea was not on this show. It was Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, but Liv Morgan defeated Nia Jax. After that one was different. That one had a ton of interference from Dominic was out there, Raquel was out there, Tiffany Stratton teases cashing in. There's a moment in the match where both of them got knocked out. Then Tiffany comes down, and it was perfect because she did not reveal who she was going to cash in on. And that's an interesting idea. Like, she's got the money in the bank. Both champions are down. She could cash in on either one. But what ended up happening was Nia Jax was going to hit the Bonsai, the Annihilator, and then Dominic Mysterio distracted the referee. Raquel came down and knocked Nia Jax off the ropes, and then Morgan hit this sort of sloppy-looking Oblivion, because it was more like a roll-through, and got the 1-2-3. So definitely some shenanigans here. With this one, I'm not sure if they're going to run it back or they're just going to keep the storyline on SmackDowns and Raw separate. I think that would probably be a good move. After Cody beat Gunther in the main event, they shook hands, and Gunther's a very different type of heel champion because he doesn't often cheat. He doesn't often, do unsavory things. He's just a tough, legitimate, old school tough guy to beat. And he's also the kind of guy who will shake hands with guys after the match. So he's a more likable heel and a more respectable heel. So earlier in the show, there was a triple threat match with LA Knight, Carmelo Hayes, and Andrade. Go out of your way to see this because these three guys work so hard. This might have been my favorite LA Knight match this whole year. They came up with these really fun triple threat spots between the three of them. Some really good near falls. Lots of creativity here. There was stuff where they were going for each other's moves and like the other person would come in. They were trying to double pin each other. It was a different type of three-way. In a world where pro wrestling three-ways often have the gimmick where one guy's on the outside, two guys are fighting, then somebody else gets knocked out, then those two start fighting, and that's like the formula for doing triple threat matches that's been going on since the late 90s. It's played out. Here they actually did a lot of spots between the three of them. Of course, the build-up to this was the Carmelo Hayes Andrade Best of 7 series. on SmackDown. LA Knight wins. What happened was Carmelo went for a face buster on Andrade, but then basically LA Knight just jumped right in, got the BFT after failing the first one, and got the 1-2-3. So now it appears like LA Knight will probably move on to another set of opponents, and this trio's feud, I guess, is over for now, and it's fine the way it was. I can't complain. Now, right before that, they had Kevin Owens and Randy Orton, and that wasn't even a match. They first of all, Kevin Owens came out with a Cowboy Bob Orton shirt. The crowd was singing Randy Orton's song. Yes, another pay-per-view of the international crowd being super into everything, and they were there to have a good time. The opener, which I'm going to talk about shortly with the Bloodline, they were there for that as well. You know, they were there. They probably spent top dollars. I don't know if you guys know this or if you followed this, but front row for WrestleMania for both nights is $50,000. It is $50,000 for front row for both nights. Now, that is more than ever, because I remember when I went to WrestleMania 24, I remember third row for that was like somewhere in the neighborhood of like $700, $800, and that's third row. So front row is probably, you know, maybe a $1,500 or so. Now it's 25,000. So man, that's why their gates are so high, folks. Anyways, so they didn't even have a match. Kevin Owens hit Randy with a chair. They're brawling everywhere. Adam Pearce came out. He got RKO'd. Daivari, some of the other producers, agents got laid out. It was not a match. It was like, okay, we don't want Randy to get pinned. We might do Cody versus Kevin sooner than later. So we can't have Kevin getting pinned. So instead they just did like a schmoz. And I'm sure they'll have a one-on-one match, probably a no rules match or an unsanctioned match or something like that down the road. But it ended when Kevin Owens did like this sort of looked like a swanton or like a flying, like a dive off of the like this little area of the, like this little riser, sort of like where the fans are, like a balcony almost, and went through a table. And so they both kind of they both, like, it was an elbow drop. That's right. And the referees went out to check on both of them, and it's no match. The bell didn't even ring. It's not even a no contest. The match didn't happen. This was the first pay-per-view outside of WrestleMania or SummerSlam to have more than 5 matches on it this year. And that is refreshing, because that was also something that I was surprised about, because that's the new thing now, is that pay-per-views are now 5 matches. That's how Triple H is booking them, like takeovers, when he used to be in charge of NXT during the OG Black and Gold era. Well, he's bringing that philosophy to the bigger shows. However, as long as fans keep paying, it's not going to change. I mean, it's just not going to change. And the unfortunate reality is, all that does is, yes, the matches can be a bit longer, but all that does is leave a lot of guys off the pay-per-views, and it also makes it so that your ticket is sort of worth less, because you're going to see 5 potential feud blow-offs or 5 story continuations instead of like 7 or 8 that you would have gotten in other pay-per-views during a different era. But this show had 7, and obviously this might be one of the reasons, because this whole brawl was not very long. The show went about 3 hours and 20 minutes, so it wasn't even a super long show, even with 7 matches on it. A little bit of a disappointment for Kevin Owens and Randy Orton, but I had a feeling it wouldn't really have a super clean finish either way. So earlier in the show, we also had Seth Rollins, Bronson Reed. This was a traditional, David versus Goliath match. Bronson Reed was the big monster. And the thing is, this is sort of, when Seth Rollins got the win here, I texted a buddy of mine and I said, he's back to the mid-card now, because this whole thing was done. Like, Bronson Reed laid out Seth because Seth needed to take more time off, because the match he had with Damian Priest in July was not very good, and it's because he apparently was not 100% from his bad ankle injury earlier this year. Remember, this guy's been on the shelf a lot this year because even going into WrestleMania, he wasn't around that much because he was hurt. Had the WrestleMania matches, had a little bit more after that, but then took more time off. Because he dropped the title at WrestleMania, and then the Punk thing happened, then Priest got it, he took time off, came back. So Seth has been more off than on this year, kind of like AJ. Unfortunately for AJ Styles, he got hurt this year, and unfortunate series of events. He was getting ready to do a big retirement tour, and now he's going to be off for another year, so maybe they'll build that up for WrestleMania 42 instead of 41 from Vegas. So, the match was good, though. Bronson Reed, closer to the main event than he's ever been before, as far as, with a big main event star like Seth Rollins. I don't count the Strowman match too much because that closed the show just because they wanted to have the ring-breaking segment. But, it was good. It was like Bronson Reed has really good cardio and good conditioning for a guy that big. The finish was that Bronson Reed grabbed the steel steps, and as he's grabbing them, Seth sort of snuck up behind him fast and hit the curb stomp, then hit another one in the ring, and then came off the top with a third one and got the 1, 2, 3. So it really felt like this was an unbeatable monster and that Seth was slaying the dragon. Afterward, it looked like Bronson was bleeding a little bit, and Seth from the aisleway was like, try me again, that'll be you again. So we'll see if this continues. Probably not. I'm thinking they're going to program Seth Rollins with Punk at WrestleMania. I'm going to talk more about that in a separate video I'm going to record because there's a lot of rumors going around now about WrestleMania and what we're going to see there, and I have some ideas that I want to share with you about what I think they could be doing or will be doing. So I'll go into all of that in a separate video. I'll go more deeply into it. There was also a 4-way women's match for the women's tag team titles. Jade Cargill, Bianca Belair retained over Chelsea Green, Piper Niven, Kairi Sane, Io Sky, and Lash Legend, and Jakara Jackson. And it was not the best. There was a lot of sloppiness here, a lot of spots that didn't look very good. I don't think it's because they're women, because there's plenty of great women wrestlers, and I'm not a sexist prick whatsoever. It's not that. I think that Lash Legend, Jakara Jackson, and maybe even Jade Cargill, they're still not at the level of like a Bianca or a Kairi and Io. Not necessarily their fault or anything like that. It's just they need more seasoning. Back in the day when you had wrestlers coming up, a lot of them wouldn't even make television until like 2 years of good, solid seasoning or at least a few months of dark matches. And remember, Jade Cargill jumped over to WWE and debuted at the Rumble this year. And she had jumped over, I want to say, in August, September of last year. So there was plenty of... there wasn't plenty of time for her to really get seasoned because the AEW, her AEW run, she didn't really have that much training. Now she's in the developmental system, but she's not quite there yet. It wasn't a bad match. It was the worst match of the night. I don't think the match, it just wasn't that good of a match, man. It was about 11 minutes. It really felt it felt longer than that, and it really felt... that it was just the weakest match of the show. Now, the opener was a lot of fun. The original Bloodline versus the new Bloodline. The original Bloodline was Roman Reigns, Jey Uso, and Jimmy Uso after that awesome reunion segment on last week's SmackDown and that great little segment on last night's SmackDown against the new Bloodline. And who was in the new Bloodline was Solo, Jacob Fatu, and Tama Tonga. Tangaloa was at ringside. He was not in the match. So they all worked hard, and the story of the match, there's two big stories here. One of them is that Roman, even though he did need Jay's help, and Jay did help him, and now they're sort of back to being the Bloodline of old, except without Paul Heyman, Roman came out with Jimmy, and then Jay got his own entrance. And he came out with, with the crowd doing the hand wave. That was cool. I really enjoyed that. And it just shows that Jey Uso's star has risen a lot since even the match he had with Roman last year at SummerSlam. I was at that SummerSlam show too in Detroit, and his hand thing was really over. The thing he does on the top rope. So they all fought hard. The fans yeeted. They chanted OTC. Roman was super over. The match didn't start till 20 minutes into the show. They took their time with it. Very sort of eventful feeling match because it's just Roman's like second match back since WrestleMania after the Bad Blood match. And they all looked good. The story was that, and it was very subtle, that the new Bloodline is all on the same page, but Roman's not really sure what to make of Jay. It's almost like he doesn't really respect him. And if you watch not fully, and if you watch the SmackDown segment from last night, the whole story was, we can be a family again, but you can't boss me around. And Roman was maybe not happy about that, maybe unsure how to take that. So that story is a developing one because it's almost like they're going to have a bumpy road before they all see everything on the same page again. Now, the post-match was interesting. Well, first and foremost, they went at it. There was a moment where Roman had Solo beat, and then it was broken up, and it was sort of I thought it was a botch at first. Jacob Fatu goes in there and saves Solo, dives to the outside, just really takes it to Roman. Like, Jacob hit a series of moves, like a big-ass 300-pound moonsault. Like, he really dished it out on him. And what happened was Solo got back up and hit Roman with like 2 Samoan spikes. Maybe even 3. I think it was 2, though. And got the 1, 2, 3 pinfall win, bro. It was a pretty clean pin, yo. So Roman has been pinned by Solo Sikoa. Roman pinned Solo last month. This month, Solo gets his win back. So we are obviously going into War Games with this story continuing. But then, after the match, they take Jay and they're about to lay him out. They put a chair around his neck with the idea being that Solo is going to destroy Jey Uso's career. And then Sami Zayn comes out. Interesting. Of course, it's Saudi Arabia. He's really over there being a Muslim. And he gets in the ring and he teases. First, he was there to save Jay. But then Solo's like talking to him, saying, no, join our bloodline. Those guys all betrayed you. Going back to what happened last year. Sami hugs Solo, but then puts a suplexes him, and then all of the new bloodline attack him, and then the old bloodline come in and save Sami, and it ends with a situation where Solo's in the ring, and you have each member of the original bloodline in each corner. You have Jimmy and Jay, and then you have Roman and Sami in opposite corners. Roman and Sami both go for their moves on Solo. Roman goes for a spear. Sami goes for the haluva kick. Solo moves, and they both hit each other. This was brilliant. Whoever came up with this, this is some brilliant stuff. So they both knocked each other like accidentally. And Jimmy's like mad, yelling at Sami, even though Jimmy's dumbass saw that it was obviously an accident. They were both going for Solo. And then Jay steps in and tries to get them to not fight. And then Roman gets up and he's like, what the hell happened? So the story here, and I thought they were going to do a story where Jay and Jimmy, mostly Jay, was going to try to convince Sami to come back for the bloodline. But that's not what happened. Sami actually came out to save Jay and instead got his clock cleaned by Roman accidentally. So the story here is going to be they can't trust each other. They can't trust Sami, but eventually Sami will be the fourth man to join War Games against them. This is something I talked about earlier this year and last year. I said they're going to totally turn this around and have the Bloodline have a babyface run. I know I did a video about this. I know I did a video about this last year. That they're going to eventually have the Bloodline do a face run. And what I thought they were going to do is have them go against Imperium. Right? Gunther and when it was still Kaiser and Giovanni. Obviously now it's changed. That's not happening, but the new Bloodline, though. The new Bloodline, Solo's team, against the original Bloodline is going to be fantastic. The honorary Uce is back, but they have to build to it, with the story here being that they don't trust each other. And that, you've got Jimmy super loyal to Roman. You've got Jay loyal to his brother, but also loyal to Sammy, and it's going to be a lot of moving pieces. Basically, if you've been watching WWE TV for the past 2.5, 3 years, all of this is going to have a payoff. It's all going to go back to that. And that's the beauty of the Bloodline story, is that's a long story with lots of curves. We still have The Rock out there waiting to make his comeback. We've still got Hikuleo out there. We've still got Zilla's out there. So there's still more Samoans to be brought in. And of course, Paul Heyman. That's the big one. And I think Paul Heyman may end up being the guy who brings Roman, Jimmy, Jay, and Sammy back together again. That's what I think is going to be his role. We shall see, but very, very, very fun show. The opener, go out of your way to see it. The three-way and the main event, the singles match with the two champions, go out of your way to see that. The women's title match was also good. Seth and Bronson Reed was like a Raw main event, but not bad by any means. So it was a pretty good show. Like I said, the four-way women's match had a lot of problems, but besides that, it was a solid show, and the story progressed. It progressed angles because the Bloodline are going to be... The Bloodline Civil War will headline the next pay-per-view, Survivor Series War Games, and let's see how they get there. TV will get very interesting in the next few weeks because now the original Bloodline and Sammy are all coming together. With that being said, what did you think about the show? Let me know in the comments. Thumbs up from me. Not the best show by any means, not perfect, but there's enough good stuff on it that I felt like I did not waste my time. Also, before I close out, I want to say R.I.P. Robert Silva. He is a guy who I knew somewhat well. I wouldn't say we were super close, but he was a contributor to my old website. He used to write articles on geekdom101.com that used to be Super Friends Mailbox or superfriendsuniverse.com. So he passed away of a heart attack last week. Just very sad, and I hope, I send prayers to his family. It was pretty hard. It was pretty hard. I just wanted to say that for him. So take care of yourself, guys. I'll see you in the next video real soon.